Hello and welcome to the first in the series of free online webinars we're delivering on the MxExam secure online examination solution, which is a fully proctored exam solution aimed at remote learners, which as we know is at the current time pretty much the majority of students in higher education and in K-12. I'm going to walk you through what the solution does, how it's deployed, and how it can provide benefit to you and your students. But what I want to do first of all is just some quick housekeeping. During the course of the meeting, which will be running in Microsoft Teams, if I can ask you please to keep your video and your microphone in the off position so that there's no distractions from any background noise that might be inadvertently heard. But equally, all the way through the meeting, if you want to use the chat feature to ask or to read questions, please feel free to do so. Any questions that are recorded during the course of the meeting, we will come back and reply to, even if there isn't an opportunity during the meeting itself. We'll make sure to revert following that. We have your contact details. So if there's any question which occurs to you both during the meeting and in the immediate aftermath of the meeting, you can use this feature. We'll be keeping the meeting running live after it concludes, so you still have an opportunity when the actual presentation ends to add a question in this area. You can also obviously email us directly. At this point, I'm just going to ask Ashutosh is on the call. Ashutosh, can you just confirm to me verbally that you can hear me?
Yes, Stephen, I can hear you.
Fantastic. The other thing I want to point out is that we are recording the session. There's two reasons for this. One is obviously so there's a record for you as attendees if you want to go back and confirm any of the details. We'll share that recording with you following the meeting itself. But equally, if you have colleagues or peers who might be interested in learning more, there's an opportunity therefore for you to send on that recording to them. At the conclusion of the presentation, I said, or if you have any questions maybe which don't occur to you during the course of the presentation itself, please do email me directly afterwards. My email address is there on the screen, stephend@terawe.com. I'm more than happy to come back and follow up with you individually with any questions you might have. So let me just start by introducing you to Terawe, who I know won't be a familiar name to you. We're a long-established Microsoft Gold partner. Our headquarters are in Seattle in the US. In fact, we're down the road from the main Microsoft campus, and pretty much all of our leadership team are former Microsoft people in very senior positions. We're a deeply technical partner, working in all of the areas you see here, from analytics and big data to cognitive services, edge computing, and maybe as an indication of how proficient we are as a technical partner is a lot of the work we do is direct consulting for Microsoft. As an example, the Microsoft Global Field Playbook for Cognitive Services was actually written by Terawe, and we manage a lot of the deep technical relationships with core Microsoft customers on their behalf. As a company, we work right across both public sector and the commercial space. We do consulting, as I said, directly. We're also a systems integrator and an ISV, and we provide a set of managed services into those customers as well. So we have a very broad areas of focus. From an industry point of view, we work across all of the industries you see listed here. And what I've included on the slide are just some examples of the customers that we have across those different industries. I'm sure a lot of these names will be very familiar to you, even if the Terawe name is not familiar immediately. Terawe have now established international offices in Dubai, in Australia, in Canada, in India, and our new European centre is being managed out of Dublin, which is where I'm speaking to you from today. My name is Stephen Duggan. I'm the Vice President for the International Business for Terawe. I also have the great honour of sitting on the governing board of the UNESCO Institute for Information Technologies and Education, where I represent the global IT industry. My background is actually in teaching. I was a secondary school teacher for many years before joining Microsoft, where I managed a variety of roles, including running the Irish education business, then the Western Europe education business, and then spent 5 years in Seattle at the corporate headquarters as Director of Worldwide Education Strategy before leaving to join Terawe. As an education partner, and education very much is a priority industry for us in our international business, we have a variety of different education solutions. The most recent one we launched into the UK and Ireland market is called Foresight Student Wellbeing, Performance and Retention. This is a solution which uses data, AI and machine learning to help identify students who may be in need of a timely intervention due to well-being issues, mental health challenges, or performance issues in terms of their academic performance. It's a solution which we are bringing into different universities in particular during the coronavirus crisis, because obviously that's actually exacerbated challenges students have with mental health and well-being. The challenge often for the welfare officers within the universities and colleges and schools is that they no longer have line of sight with students who may be experiencing difficulties. And in that circumstance, the ability to ingest data from all of the different student systems, from LMS to SIS to counselling records, etc., to help identify students proactively before they reach a point of crisis is really important. If you want to have any more information about that solution, please do reach out following today's presentation. But the focus for today is going to be on this solution, the MxExam Secure Online Examination Solutions. And this is built upon the Windows Virtual Desktop technology. Now, as I go through, having seen the registration pages, I know we have a variety of people of different levels of technical competence. So I'll apologize in advance if I don't go into a very deep technical level during this call, out of deference to those who are joining who may not have that deep technical background. But obviously, we're always available to answer any more detailed follow-up questions afterwards. So where did this solution come from? Well, initially, it was a reach out to us from UK university customers who had realized that with the pandemic, the likelihood was that remote learning would have to become remote exam taking. Now, and that's something that obviously we've seen happen. We've seen a second lockdown for most countries in Europe. And there's also the expectation that even when things return to quote unquote normal, remote learning is probably going to continue to be the norm for at least some students from next year and beyond. For a number of students, that's already the case. Students who have accessibility challenges or persons with disability are often in a situation where remote learning becomes the norm for them. And we want to ensure that a solution of this kind is although it's been very much fine-tuned during the current circumstances and against the background of the pandemic, is a robust solution that's going to be available for you to use for any students who may not be able to physically attend an exam hall at any stage during their university or school career. Why are the exams so important? You know, there's been some questions asked about whether point-in-time exams have that much relevance, and that's obviously a debate which has really been sparked in the current time. But the reality is that exams are the most effective way right now of both reinforcing learning, offering feedback to students, helping them to self-reflect and manage their own progress. And right now, it's also critical for the university to deliver those exams so that students can progress through the different years of the college. It's also, as you would expect for either a school or a university, essential to their value proposition that they can bring students through a course of study, which most schools and colleges are doing very effectively, even when that's even a remote environment. But equally that ultimately they receive a qualification and a certification which recognizes the learning that they've made. And the ability to do that when there is a struggle in terms of supporting physical attendance as exams is an issue that technology can help address. At the back of this, the same concerns that would exist in a physical exam are still the same concerns we have in a remote exam. Data privacy is a massive issue, particularly in the EU and in the UK. The integrity of exams is absolutely essential. We need to ensure that a student taking an exam is who they say they are, that they conduct that exam in a way that is fully proctored. So there's the ability to manage and support a student during the course of the exam itself. And at the other side of this, we need to make sure that exams are still easy to set. that typically a faculty member or a teacher may not have deep technical skills themselves, but it must be easy and intuitive for them to still schedule an exam, invite students to attend that exam, and then manage and proctor the exam as well. And at the back of that, there's obviously an increased emphasis when students aren't in line of sight physically within exam hall to control issues such as exam fraud. So in building a solution based on the feedback we had from our customers, these were the core things we saw people were asking for. They were looking for isolated environments for their own institution, not a shared solution between them and other schools or colleges in the area, but something which was very much dedicated and isolated to their needs. Secondly, they needed the ability for the administrator of the exam system to be able to create effectively multiple virtual exam halls and then associate teachers and students with those exam halls. And then for the educators themselves to quickly and easily schedule exam times exactly as they would within a school or college scenario in a physical exam, and then publish those to the students as secure calendar invites, to have that level of security from the very first step. Then in terms of the delivery of the process, students should be easily able to join the exam hall and log in using the same credentials that they typically used across the institution. Our university and school customers were very keen to avoid the need for additional login credentials, additional passwords, given the complexity that this can introduce. We need to make sure that during the course of an exam, teachers still had the opportunity to notify or message individual students or the group. You know, as I mentioned, I'm a former English teacher myself, and I can remember a number of occasions when I had to come into an exam hall to clarify a detail of the exam paper or to make a correction to a mistake I'd made myself while setting it. But within that, we also needed to make sure that the environments that the students were working in during their virtual exam were restricted and controlled. Some examples that people gave to us was they wanted to make sure that while they worked on the virtual desktop, that it should not be possible for students to add a thumb drive to the side of the machine they were using or otherwise transfer files into that desktop to assist them during the exam. There were requests to disable certain functions, such as the cut and paste function, to make sure again that people followed the letter of the law, if you like, during the course of taking the exam. In some cases, customers talk to us about wanting to completely block access to the internet, which is very easy to do, or to allow students to connect to specific websites which were defined as part of the exam experience or the exam process. And then secondly, outside of the ability to run the exam, there was a desire for rich dashboards which produced insights, taking the data from the exam process itself and serving back useful information, useful insights for those running the exam system within the school or university, but also for teachers and students as well to be able to reflect on core data which is generated by multiple people taking exams at the same time. And having those reports with clear visualizations and with clear outputs, which can help feed into the delivery and the planning of future exams. So as we built out the MxExam solution, we wanted, first of all, to ensure that scheduling and resourcing could be done easily. And the solution that we've built this upon is the Microsoft Office 365 solution, which is the most common source of email and calendaring across the university and schools environment. We also wanted to make sure that it was possible to include permissions as part of that, and then support a single sign-on to a dedicated portal. The MxExam portal is built on our ManageX portal, which is a proven platform we've delivered research support for and support across a number of different industries. Here, with a single sign-on, what you do as a student is you connect to an isolated Windows virtual desktop. That virtual desktop, although it looks the same for every student, has restricted functionality as defined or required by each examiner. So, for example, somebody running a computer science exam on a virtual desktop will want that virtual desktop to have a number of named software packages pre-installed. If somebody's running an exam, for example, in English, maybe the core piece of software that's required on the virtual desktop is something as simple as Microsoft Word. But the ability to create functionality and to tailor those desktops is obviously very important for examiners. Then once the exams are running, there must be the ability to monitor those exams, to manage the exam process itself, and where necessary to generate alerts which are visible to students either individually or as a group. And obviously, the most important thing here is that this is an extensible model. There's the ability effectively to create an infinite number of virtual exam halls, each of them supported by a console and dashboard view. So the administrator looking left to right across the college exam system has visibility. Examiners and faculty have visibility into their class or group level and also right into an individual student level, and that there's intelligent proctoring support throughout. So when we built the MxExam solution, first of all, we built it on a proven platform. It's a platform that's used globally already by both commercial customers and education customers. We've built it also as a customizable or white label interface. What this means is that when the MxExam solution is deployed within your school or college, you have the ability to customize the interface to make it look, for example, the same as every other website you have on your school or college website, to include things like the school or college crest, to replicate the basic design, fonts, etc. Beyond that, we make sure that there's simple and secure authentication. We use Azure AAD. We also use Office 365 or Microsoft 365 credentialing to keep it simple. And then that there's connection to lockdown controlled virtual desktops. And these desktops, as I said, are not only customizable, but this is an important factor, they are identical. Because equity becomes a really important issue when people are connecting to remote exams. It's important, for example, that a well-off student who may have a powerful and relatively new laptop doesn't have an advantage over a student who perhaps isn't as well off and whose machine might be less powerful or older. When you click through into the MxExam platform and you open up your virtual desktop, the desktop that you have access to is exactly the same as every other student who is taking that exam. It has the same power, it has the same software, it has an identical signature, if you like, to that which every student is accessing. So there's no advantage for a student over another student, just in terms of the hardware they're using to connect into the virtual desktop. The desktop itself runs in the cloud and provides identical capacity and capability for each student. At the back of this, one of the things that's been very important is having identity check safeguards. With every customer we spoke to, they said their main concern was the danger of personation. That they could deliver an exam, they could ensure that the student in each case began the exam at the same time, they could look into their desktops, but the question was asked, how can we be sure that that student is the student who's supposed to take this exam at this time? That at some stage during the exam or for the entire exam, there isn't somebody else sitting behind the keyboard. Now, to address the issue of personation, the MxExam solution offers a number of different safeguards. It's possible, for example, to use random point-in-time snapshotting. So when a student connects into the virtual desktop, one of the first things they're asked to do is to give their consent to enable the webcam on that desktop or laptop computer. This allows schools and colleges to choose from a number of different security options. The most simple of these is use of random point-in-time photographs, snapshots using the webcam itself. The students don't know when this will happen, and they don't know when it is happening. And in general, a bit like putting a burglar alarm box out the front of your house, it's enough of a deterrent in most cases for people not to try and have somebody else take part or all of their exam. For some colleges we've talked to, they want something more than that. They have asked for constant video recording for the entire length of the exam. We can also support this. We can record using the webcam the entire length of the exam, whether that be a 2-hour or a 5-hour exam, and then store those recordings. Now, beyond that, there's two options for people. They can either themselves review those recordings if they feel that there's a particular student whose script have suggested there might be some anomalies. They can go into the record store and view that as they would any other video. Or, as has been requested by at least one of the customers we've talked to, we can provide an AI assessment service so that we can use artificial intelligence to look through one or all of the videos to try and spot anomalies, which may indicate that there's been a challenge in terms of the integrity of the exam. So how does the whole service work from a customer point of view? So the first stage is the setup stage. What we do following our initial discussions with you is we set up a consultation to better understand your particular needs, the typical exam period length, the rhythm, the requirements, to talk about the variety of subjects that you will be examining people in and how the virtual desktops might differ, both in terms of the power of those desktops. Obviously, you will need a more powerful virtual machine if you're taking a computer science or an engineering exam than you might for an exam in one of the humanities. And following the consultation process, we begin a discussion about the integration. To what extent do you want the MxExam solution to sit beside your existing solutions and systems, or to what extent do you want it to be fully integrated? Now, MxExam is a fully managed service, so you can do something as simple as allow students to authenticate and click straight through to that managed service. But we have had some conversations with colleges where they said they want a deeper integration. And obviously, as we look at the setup stage, we would have that conversation with you and determine exactly what you want and how to go about that. Another part of the setup stage conversation is this notion of customization. To what extent do you want the look, the feel, and the experience, the user experience, to mirror other systems across the college and other online services? And then the final part of the setup stage includes training. We understand that even when people are relatively technically proficient, using any new system, even one that's very intuitive, requires some training. So we provide workshops as part of the setup stage for all of the key stakeholders, for the IT staff, the exam administrators, for the educators who be setting the exams, and also making that information available to students as well, so that when the day of the exam comes, there is a shared understanding in terms of the process itself. So what you see, for example, on the screen in front of you here is a typical admin view, tailored and customized to the need of a particular customer in terms of its appearance, and providing a left to right view across all of what are termed labs here, which are the virtual exam halls. So during the setup stage, we would work with you to make sure that the solution that's being built is exactly tailored to your needs, your educators' needs, and to your students' needs. Once that stage is complete, we move to the planning stage. At this stage, what we start to do is to create and configure the specific virtual desktops that will be required by educator, by year of study, and by subject. And that configuration can be quite broad. As I said, there are some exams where people are not simply answering questions and perhaps typing their answer in a Word document, but are actually performing tasks, are using software packages and other things of this nature to perform tasks within the virtual desktop. And what we do is we make sure that we have a full understanding and exact tailoring of each of those desktops to adequately and identically match the requirements that each faculty member setting an exam might have. At this stage, we move towards the exam setting. This is where the intuitive interface is used for a teacher or an educator to quickly set an exam, to create an exam paper, and upload that exam paper into the system, to send a calendar invite to the named students they wish to attend that virtual exam, including the details of the timing, and then to distribute those invitations and manage the replies, acceptances, etc. Through that system. What you see here is a typical teacher view, and this is the set of exams that this teacher has scheduled. And they can click through in each case, see the exam paper, see which of the students have already accepted the invitation. They can read messages that may come in from students if there are concerns, etc. And then we come to the delivery stage. At the delivery stage, exams have been set, the calendar invites have gone out to the students and they've accepted them. They log in using their standard authentication credentials within the college, sign into the exam hall, and then when the exam time begins, then they are enabled to begin the exam. So it's entirely synchronized at the start and end. Towards the end time, they will receive alerts letting them know how close they are to the conclusion of the time, just to assist them with their own timekeeping. But everything runs in tandem. And again, the key here is that the experience for every student is exactly the same. All of the proctoring mechanisms are there in place. So those invigilating the exams are capable of looking at students at an individual and at a group level and wherever needed to make an intercession. And as I said at the back of this is a fully managed service. So Terawe provide this service complete with service level agreements. So if there are issues in terms of the setup or delivery with any of the technologies, we support that. This doesn't become a workload for the IT team within the university. It functions as a fully managed service delivered to you and supporting both the educators and the students. Once the exam is complete, we get to the assessment stage. All of the completed exams are stored and forwarded and made available to the examiners and the faculty members. Security checks can then be performed to assess whether there are any issues or concerns, and then the results at the end of the process can be distributed to the students. One specific issue which has come up, and I'll make reference to within the security checks, sort of indicates how robust and also how complex the process can be. There have been instances, we've been told, where students who have taken a remote exam have then come back to their examiner and said, no, I know I only answered 3 of the 5 questions, but that's not because I didn't know the other answers, it's because my broadband fell. My broadband stopped working, and for a large part of the exam time, I wasn't able to tell you all the things I know. One of the things that the MxExam solution will do is that it will monitor uptime at the user end. So we can identify whether or not students are having an issue with their broadband connection, or if indeed, as they claim, the broadband went down during the course of their exam period. So as I said, it's a very intricate process in terms of providing you with security checks, but a very intuitive process for all of the stakeholders involved. For the IT department, for the administrators of exams, for the teachers and faculty members setting exams, and for the students who are logging in and taking those exams. So obviously the core question at this stage, I'm sure that will be occurring to you, is what does the solution cost? Well, the first thing to point out is that there are a number of different pricing components on a virtual desktop solution of this kind. First of all, there's the consultation and setup, which is a fixed cost, but it's also a once-off cost. Once we've sat with the university and school, understood what your needs are, and gone through the setup process, including the training of the staff, it would not be necessary, except in very unlikely circumstances, that all of that process would have to be repeated the second time your set of remote exams are delivered within the same academic year, or probably for future academic years, unless there's major changes either in staff or in the solution itself. Beyond that, there's then the virtual desktop configuration, and this is obviously a variable. You know, if we're creating desktops for engineering students, the desktop configuration will obviously differ greatly from that for somebody taking an exam in a subject like archaeology or geography. The time is also a variable, and this is because exam times themselves vary greatly. We work in general on an assumption that the average exam time within a university setting tends to be 2.5 hours, and the number of exams per day typically tends to be 2. But that can vary, obviously, from college to college, from faculty to faculty, and from school to school, particularly at different age levels. And then lastly, there's the optional additional costs of customization and integration. It's a white label service which doesn't need to be customized any more than you want it to be. And because it runs as a managed service, it doesn't need to be integrated into your other systems unless you choose to do so. So looking at indicative pricing, therefore, what we've done in this instance is we've made a number of assumptions to give you clear pricing that you can reference in terms of determining what works for you. What I should say immediately is that a key follow-up coming out of today's webinar should be a conversation with you so that we can directly provide a cost estimate based on the exam period, the exam duration, and the typical number of students within your own institutions. For this example, what we've taken is based on conversations we've had with higher education institutions who on average tended to have around 2,500 students sitting exams each day of the exam period. Obviously, we're not saying that there are 2,500 students in total within the student body. This is an average number of students each day actually sitting an exam. And in this instance, 2 exams for 2.5 hours each. And the price per exam day based on that is under £400 sterling. The assumptions, again, that you see below are important too. We're assuming that they need a relatively powerful desktop. In some cases, they may not need as powerful a desktop as the one we've provisioned here, which is an 8 GB RAM and 16 GB temp storage desktop. In some cases, they may need a more powerful virtual desktop. And again, we can discuss your specific needs. The likelihood is that there will be a variety of virtual desktops across the institution. Based on this price per exam day, again, our conversations with universities suggest that typically exams run for either 2 or 3 weeks. And in this instance, we're looking at the high end of that scale and assuming that the exam period may run for 3 weeks, 5-day week in each instance, again, with an average of 2,500 students each day, taking 2 exams of 2.5 hours. What that works out as an average cost per exam student is less than £1 for the entire exam period. That's for a student to take 12 2.5-hour exams during the exam period, with the assumption that probably equates to 6 exam days during the period. Outside of the costing on a day basis, exam period basis, and a per student basis, there's obviously those other elements we mentioned. The initial setup cost is a fixed cost. This includes the consultation, it includes the workshop and training that is delivered to all of the key stakeholders in the process. Customization, as I said, is very much an optional cost. People have asked us for a variety of different levels of customization, including the replication from a design point of view of the look and feel. We have our own design team, so we can do that without difficulty, but also sometimes some assistance in terms of internal digital marketing. Can we help to prepare the students not just by educating them in how the system works, but by helping build awareness of exam timetables, enhancing the information that's available to them in terms of when their exam is happening, what might be required, and generally helping to introduce the new system across the institution. But again, all of these things are optional. Integration, again, as I said, this is an optional cost, and the demands from different colleges will be very different here. Some people taking a longer view have said that they would like to fully integrate this into the entire system that's being provided for their students, so that it just becomes something integral to all of the other student information systems and things of that nature, and including a full integration with that student information system itself. Outside of this, there are, as I said, a variety of different security options are available. We can, as I said, enable something as simple as random snapshots using the webcam. But if people obviously want to go to the far extreme of this and say, no, we want to go as far as having a video recording through the webcam for the entire length of the exam, We'd like those recordings then stored and made accessible. And we'd also like you to perform an artificial intelligence analysis of those recordings remotely to help identify any sort of suspicious behavior. We can obviously support any of those things, but obviously your choice of which security measure you want to implement yourself is entirely up to you. So what are the next steps following today? The first thing I would say is, if this is of interest to you and you can see how the service can help you to manage the process for your exams, then please just reach out and ask for a virtual meeting. What we will do is we will set up a Teams call with you and colleagues to go through your specific needs. Typically what we do once there's a virtual meeting request, we direct you to a very short online form where we ask some simple questions in terms of your typical exam duration, exam period, number of students, and types and variety of subjects that they might be taking, etc. What that means is that when we have that virtual meeting, we're in a position to give you a tailored walkthrough of how the MxExam solution would work for your specific institution, and equally can give you a tailored cost estimate based on the variables that you've been able to identify and clarify for us. At that stage, we agree a timeline with you and key milestones for the schedule to take you through the setup process and to ensure that the managed service is available for delivery when the exam time comes around. So that's it in a nutshell. What I would say to you is hopefully you'll see that this is a very intuitive and a very robust and very secure solution. We work very, very closely, as I said, with Microsoft. The MxExam system is built entirely on the Azure platform. We are a Microsoft Gold partner of long standing and work very closely with your Microsoft your Microsoft account contacts. I would encourage you to reach out to them if you're looking for more information about us as a partner, and look forward very much to having the opportunity to arrange a tailored walkthrough and cost estimate for you. As I said at the start of the meeting, if there are additional questions which occur to you, you can place them into the chat window, or you can follow up with us directly following the exam. So in the little bit of time that's available, I'm going to quickly look into the chat window. I see there are a number of questions that have already been asked, and I will do my best to address these. Any questions I can't answer directly today, what I will do is, as I said, and we'll come back to you individually with answers to any of the questions that you present to us either now or following the presentation if you want to send them through email. So the first question I see from Kristen is regarding the recording of exams, who has control over length of time stored and deletion? The answer is that you do. You can determine exactly how long you want those recordings retained. Access to those recordings can be restricted as and how you wish them to be, and then the control to delete them again is yours. You know, we're very mindful of things like GDPR requirements. As I said, we're a long-standing Microsoft partner working across a variety of industries, and you can imagine, I'm sure, that in industries such as the biopharmachem industry, issues of data privacy and security are absolutely paramount. So we're quite familiar with this. And Ben's question is, are the VMs pooled or personal? Generally, they're shared desktops. Obviously, for those of you who are not familiar with the technologies, this doesn't mean that the desktop that each individual student is connecting to is in any way shared with another student. It just means that it's a more cost-effective way. If you think of it, for example, as having a home PC that 3 or 4 people within the household connect to, when they connect to it, their own desktop is personal, is locked, and is secure. Ian's question is, what runs on the student's end? Is it run from an installed application, RDP client, web browser, etc., and what is supported? Ian, I think we should follow up offline in this because there are a number of different issues here from a technical point of view I'd like to elaborate upon. But effectively, the core requirement on a student basis is just that they have internet access. As long as they have web access through a browser, then they can connect to the virtual machine. As I said, if there are any further questions which occur to you, please do reach out. My email address is there. I am going to leave this session running, so until the top of the hour. So if other questions do occur to you during that time, please do place them in the chat window. I hope you found this informative. I think we all recognise right now that we need a robust solution for running online exams, because the likelihood is, even with the thankful spectre of a workable vaccine approaching in the coming months, the reality is, I think remote work, not just for students but for ourselves as well, I'm sure we're all connecting from home today, is going to become more of the norm as we go forward. The reality is that running secure exams online shouldn't be in any way less secure, and in many cases is probably more secure than you can do within a physical exam hall. Having stood in those exam halls in the past, I know that it's not possible for a human invigilator to be watching every student every minute of the time. In an online exam solution of this kind, it is. It's not possible always to spot analogous behaviour with the use of AI and with use of online proctoring. Again, it is. The expectation should be that a solution of this kind gives you greater as opposed to lesser security and confidence in the integrity of the exams. I'd like to thank you all for your time and attention today. As I said, we have recorded today's session, and we'll send you a copy of that recording once we've edited and prepared it for you. And please do feel free to send it on to any of your colleagues or peers who may wish to learn more. My email address, as I said, is there, and I look forward very much to hearing from you so we can set up a one-on-one conversation to talk about your specific needs. Many thanks.